Welcome back to the channel, viewers. Today we're working on a 1995 Oldsmobile 98. Came in here, came in here with several problems. Most of them around the idea that if you could get the engine to run, it would stumble and then eventually stall out. Who knows when it would do that? 10 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. It's just stall out at any time. So went through the simple basic testing of everything. The current owner of this car bought it at what he thought was a good deal. And at this point, it's still a good deal. Car has originally 62,000 miles on it. It's a clean car, inside and out. An elderly couple had bought this car new and sold it to a guy. And then the guy this client that owns it now, bought it from that guy. So technically, I guess you could say, yeah, he's a third owner. I reckon. I don't know. So anyway, good clean car. And we'll just call it a crank no start issue. And before you jump to conclusions saying it's a crank sensor or cam sensor or a bad ignition coil, you still need to know what you're working with. So first thing I did was a compression test. So pulled all 6 spark plugs out, did a compression test. Okay, so the engine's worth working on at that point. I have heard it run. I drove it up the street and back. So everything, once I finally did get it to run, halfway decent. So I knew there was something going on in the electrical department. Now, I did a fuel pressure test on it. And for those of you that don't know, this is your fuel pressure regulator. And if you want to test it to see if it's leaking while the engine's running, you pull the vacuum hose off the nipple. And if gas comes out of here, rebuild your regulator. As you can tell, it's made into the fuel rail. And so there's no replacing it unless you replace the fuel rail. That's pretty expensive when you can buy a rebuild kit for the regulator right here. A lot of things have been replaced on this car as far as sensors go. Like they put a new IAC valve map and TPS to fix this issue. The previous owner did, and that did not fix the issue. So I ran a fuel pressure test on it. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, guys, but bear with me here. I've had this project here for a little while now, so I'm trying to remember everything I've done to it without looking at my notes. So do your fuel pressure test here. Now, these things need to run around 50 pounds minimum of pressure to make them run good. This one was not. It was down in the high 30s. So at which point I removed the fuel tank, replaced the fuel module in the tank, fuel pump, whatever you want to call it. I chose to go with the module. It's actually easier to install. It's a little more expensive, but you know, you can save yourself a little bit of money if you want to put the hose clamp, rubber hose style pump on there. That's fine. Do what you got to do. But we just opted to go with a whole module. That way we get a new sending unit and everything. All right. So, ignition control module, for those of you that don't know, is these are your coil packs. And then underneath here, see all those wires? That's a lot of wires for coil packs now, isn't it? That's because your ignition control module is underneath the coils. All right, so after testing that, everything checked out good there. I went over and checked all the new sensors that have been replaced. They're good. So that led me down to the cam sensor and crank sensor. So this being a 95 Olds, it's going to require a 24 millimeter. You got to remove the harmonic balancer. Now some cars, the balancer is pressed on, some not. You can just pull it right off once you take the crank bolt out. you need to remove this bolt with a 24mm socket, 1/2-inch breaker bar, and it should come loose. Though this one was a bit stubborn, I had to set the breaker bar, put the socket on the bolt, set the breaker bar on the frame, and go bump the key to break the bolt loose. Now, I don't recommend you do that, but sometimes you have to. Anyway, so got the bolt out, got the balancer off. Now, your balancer, I've put everything up here on the workbench because I've been testing things. Okay, so here's your crankshaft sensor. Now, you'll need to know which one you have. They have what's a 3X and an 18X crank sensor. Now, you want to count the outside tabs. If you have 18 of them, then obviously you have the 18X. If you have an outer ring here that kind of looks like the inside ring with 3, then that's a 3X. All right, this one's an 18X. So count it, because when you replace your crank sensor, being that is, if that is your problem, you'll need to know that. In this case, here's the cam sensor. Now, in this case, this is the way it was when I removed the balancer and the plastic shield laying there on the floor. It was cracked. It basically exploded. It doesn't appear to have been replaced, though the previous owner was told that it got replaced by their mechanic. And it very well could have. Now, you can replace these without pulling the harmonic balancer off and getting a few other parts out of your way. I don't recommend that. You know, this is a $50 sensor, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't gotten the parts in yet, so I haven't seen the invoice. But they're usually in the $50 to $60 range for the AC Delco. What leads me to believe that this one's still stock, original, is because I'm seeing some varnish in here. Now, this sensor, this cam sensor, there's a magnet on the camshaft gear, and it breaks signal to tell what it does. I know I'm not explaining what it does. I'm explaining what you're going to be looking for. So you got the balancer. You take the balancer off to make your life easier. And while you have the balancer off, that's the only way to get the crank sensor out, is to take the balancer off. And I would just go ahead and replace the crank sensor as well. In this case, the cam sensor is probably obviously the suspect here. But since I got it off, we're going to spend another $50, $60 and replace the crank sensor and be done with it. As long as it specs out, the new one specs out. So, anyway, hope this helps some of you. If you have a crank no start, or it does eventually crank and start up, and then it idles rough, poor gas mileage, just struggling to run, and cuts off on you, stalls out, whatever you want to call it, then you may want to start looking towards the cam and crankshaft sensors. So I hope this helps you out. I'm sure there's 100 videos on the 3.8 GM 3.8 V6 out there explaining this very same thing, but I just thought it might be a little bit more helpful to people that are in the same situation. And who knows, maybe my video will show up when you look for it, your problem on YouTube. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. My channel has a variety of different repair videos, transmission videos, just check out my playlists and see if any of those videos help you out. So give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. Leave a question in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Turn your notification bell on and click all. That way you're notified of all my upcoming videos. I try to post once a week. I know I should probably be doing more than that, but I'm not actually, I'm not one of these YouTubers out here trying to make a living on YouTube. I don't really have time to do that. That's a full-time job all by itself. And after several years of putting videos on YouTube now, I have come to realize that it is a full-time job. And if I'm doing YouTube full-time, just learning how it works, I'm not able to create content. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll stop rambling on now, and see you on the next one.